Hey man, let's light this candle. Let's get into it. We've got two wacky, wild questions to talk about today.
All right, can't wait. Happy Friday there, Mr. Tom.
Good to see you, Brett. Welcome back to the Therapy Unzipped podcast. People sending in their questions, and we've got two kind of doozies today. Well, not too intense, but I think it could spark some conversation. Once again, if you have questions, send them in. Find me on the social media platforms and send in your questions at questions at therapyunzipped.com, and we'll answer them, man. We'll do our best. So let's
It's
just
funny,
let's just
Tom. We've
jump
been
into it.
asking for questions for years, and we would get one every couple of months.
Yeah.
And then, like the last several months, we're getting flooded with questions, which is great. Love that.
Yeah. And if there's any, fun comments, I'll share those comments on there too.
All right.
Funny, my my wife kind of talked me into or inspired me. She has now gotten into watching the Reels and the TikToks. Because for a
Uh,
while she was like, I don't understand the draw to it, whatever. I'll play my app games and
huh,
then she started like on like Facebook, they show you the reels and she looks at a lot like dogs and stuff. And then she just stumbled on a couple of really funny ones, people doing voiceovers for dogs or whatever. And then now she's hooked and she's into it. And she's
yeah,
like, the
that's
videos I like is when like there's guys like lip syncing stuff and
mhm.
like that's kind of funny, like maybe you should do more of that. So I was like, all right, well, I'll put some of those out and see what comes and people love it. People send in requests.
That's great.
Yeah, the latest request was a Britney Spears one, so
Oops, I did it again.
and that dropped today.
Can't wait till it hits
So
my
you're
feed.
listening to it, go look for that one. Ooh, yeah, that's as bad, but
That's funny. Uh-oh. Well, now she's hooked,
yep, she's hooked, so she's in it. And she's already experienced the I don't know what happened to today.
right?
I
Yeah.
was off and it was early and I got something to eat and I was looking at reels and then
And then it was
all of a
dark.
sudden it was dark.
Uh-huh. We've all been there.
Yep, we've been there. It just sucks you in.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so we've got two questions for today. One is from Carl. Now, of course, we're keeping some of the information private, so Carl may not be his name, or maybe it is. Anyway, Carl
Sorry about
writes,
that, Carl. We meant to keep
and I've already read this, but you haven't heard it, so
I
this will
have
be
not
a
heard
nice
it. Yeah.
surprise. Is it normal to feel intense rage when someone chews loudly? And if so, is it still considered self-care if I throw a breadstick across the room to reclaim my peace?
That is funny. I love that question, Carl. We all have our little idiosyncrasies, things that just irritate us, that may be benign to other people, but things that irritate us. And it's funny how those things develop. Where did that come from? How did that develop? We talk about we're an accumulation of our experiences, which means, we are a learning organism. So after all these years of developing from childhood to adolescence and adulthood, whatever, we are just an accumulation of our experiences, and most of our responses are automatic. We don't even think
Hmm.
about how we respond. So, what is it about that drives you so insane? Is it just the lack of manners? Is it a tactile thing, like that auditory thing that just
Right.
drives you crazy? There
Hmm.
are some people that cannot handle sounds that should not be there, like a little rattle in a car or something like that, that just drive
Right.
them crazy.
Yeah. And I've experienced this too. Something like in the back of my truck, there's the tire iron and the jack and all that. And sometimes things shift when you're turning and they end up clinking together and then they rattle during the whole trip. And it drives me absolutely insane. I just want to like pull over and go and
Mhm.
move that stuff. And I've done that once and I didn't move it enough and it fell back. I'm just like, "Ah." Yeah, those sensory things. It could not only be auditory, but it could be tastes, it could be smells, it could be touch, things that you see, all of your senses. You could be sensitive to those things. And maybe because there's a negative connotation, and like you said, maybe there's a disrespect or manners or what have you, but it's driving you absolutely up the wall. So, what are you going to do about it when you're experiencing that? Probably not socially acceptable to throw a breadstick across the room.
All right.
I'm guessing you're in a restaurant at the Olive Garden or something, and somebody's,
At the OG, hanging out at the OG.
yeah. Some people can't breathe through their nose, so they have to chomp and open their mouth to be able to breathe.
Hmm. Right. Yeah, and let's go back to, it drives you crazy. And we talk about anger as a leading emotion. Now, what does that mean? It means that it's unfortunately more socially acceptable, and we've learned that expressing anger is an easy way for us to express emotions. Well, and this is my opinion, 90% of anger isn't really anger. There's something else below that, but
Hmm.
anger is a leading emotion, and it's a go-to thing for us to express. But is it really anger, or is it disappointment? Is it shame? Is it guilt? Is it, there's a lot of emotions under that, but we're very comfortable showing anger in our society when, and particularly in the male, and I don't want to be sexist here, but
Right.
particularly with males, it's very hard to
Hmm.
show vulnerability, to show, shame, guilt, uncomfortability, um, not being confident, so we lead with anger and then people back off, right?
Right.
Because
It
people
works.
understand anger. It
It
works.
works.
Anger works.
Yeah.
But is it? And then so when people are expressing anger, I don't know why I got so angry. Well, let's talk about that. What were you thinking? Was it really
Hmm.
anger?
Hmm. And because it works, it's reinforced that this is how I need to respond to it instead of really exploring what's underneath that. The iceberg thing, what's on the
Mhm,
surface, there's so much below that bubbling up. So what else is going on? Important for you to maybe talk with your therapist about that, or talk with a trusted friend, or talk with your spouse and explore, well, what's beneath that? Maybe by exploring what's underneath that, you can change that response and that reaction. You can do something about it. And there's a lot of shit that's way out of your control, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. And you have to radically accept that that's just what it is. You have agency, though. If it's too much and it's driving you crazy, then you can
mhm,
leave that restaurant, remove yourself from the situation.
mhm.
Yeah. So many other things that you can do.
Yeah, or call attention to it. Hey, I'm not sure you're aware, but you're chomping kind of loud,
Yeah.
Are you congested? Is something going on there? I mean, at least you can call attention to it without leading with anger. You don't have to lead with the throwing of the breadstick. How about a conversation? Hey, you remember when we used to actually talk about things before we got angry?
Right. Hmm. Hey, maybe like some of the younger people carry around your headphones and
Hmm.
listen to Led Zeppelin or something.
Yeah. What is that? I wonder. Did old Aunt Mabel like embarrass you at a family dinner because you were chewing with your mouth open and it's
Right.
embarrassment?
I bet
No.
you something happened,
Hmm.
Were you ridiculed because you were chewing with your mouth open when you were a kid? And,
Hmm.
and we're not putting, we're not making fun of you or what had happened, what's happened potentially to you. We're just trying to explore and find out, well, what is it? What's underneath that? What's going on for you that you find tremendous, whatever disrespect, or it irritates you and drives you absolutely crazy hearing this person, chomp, chew really loudly.
Hmm.
And is it like a neurodivergent, autistic type of, sensory issue? Like, that I don't like certain fabrics on, I don't like certain sounds that, well, could be.
Right.
How,
Tastes, all that
yeah.
sensory stuff.
And
Tactile.
I wonder if there's other things in your life that tend to drive you crazy. Because interestingly enough, like that thing in the back of the truck, the clinking, the metal clinking drives me
Mm.
crazy. But if I hear somebody chewing loudly, it just doesn't bother me. It doesn't even register. I just push it out
Right.
of my mind. So, um, Yeah, like you said, we're an accumulation of experiences. So,
So, here I'll go with my own is since I lost my hair, I've been going bald, right? So I just shave it down. Everyone knows I'm bald and it's easier just to keep it short, right? What will drive me insane is people that touch my bald head, particularly when I don't know it's coming.
right.
I have an automatic response to that, and it's usually not pleasant. So,
That's so wild. Why do
yeah.
people feel like they have to do that?
And I mean so I've thought about it before because I've had some bad reactions when people have done that. And, first of all, it's disrespectful. You're touching me
Right?
in a sensitive area. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like you shake hands or, you touch somebody's arm or you touch their shoulder when they're talking.
Yeah.
You're touching the top of my head. Okay.
Yeah.
That, like, how disrespectful. The
Yeah.
second thing, it's the constant reminder that you think my bald head is entertaining for you, right? So thanks. Yes, I was not happy about losing my hair. I don't,
Yeah.
I wish I had a full head of hair.
Yeah.
And I don't. And then I've lived with it and it's okay. But
Mhm.
you don't have to keep calling attention to it.
Yeah.
Keep your grimy little mitts off my head.
What is it about the shaved head that people just want to like go touch it?
Oh, mm,
If you know out there, please let us know.
mhm. And I can imagine for women when they're pregnant and people want to touch their stomach.
Right? Yeah.
I just find
Oh.
that the most disrespectful, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, it's one thing if it's a family member, or a really close friend, and, or even if you ask, but people like strangers that just come up and will touch a pregnant woman's stomach, I just, at that, like, it's like the bald head for me.
Right. Yeah. That just floors me. And I don't get it. What's the mechanism behind that? What is it that's so fascinating that we feel like we have the right to go up there and just invade
Right.
somebody's personal space and then touch them?
Yeah. So anyway, well, Carl, if someone touched my bald head, I'd want to throw a breadstick at them too. So I get what you're coming from.
It is self-care for you to either have a chat with that person and express how you're feeling, and also to potentially leave the situation and maintain your own personal peace and sanity. Um, if we can avoid doing socially inappropriate things, then do that. Some people fight fire with fire and they become boisterous and annoying themselves. And not that I'm encouraging you to do that, but maybe you could chew loudly and be on like 10 times
All right.
more annoying than that person, and maybe they would get the hint. Kind of like when somebody's got ranch on their cheek and you keep like wiping your cheek, and then hopefully they get the subliminal message that they need to wipe.
Or, if you've asked them and you talk to it and then just let out a big fart. It's like, okay, manners are out the window. Let's go.
Yeah.
What?
So yeah, go do that.
Well, oh, hey, better out
Yeah.
of the basement than the attic.
Yeah. You like apples? How do you like them apples? All right. This is from a username Moonbeam.
Moonbeam. All right.
Moonbeam. Uh, I go to a local coffee shop, and it was during an hour that it wasn't so busy, and I found myself trauma dumping on my barista, and she gave me a free muffin. Does that count as progress in my healing journey, or should I tip more?
Wow. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
And it's funny because I guess we're baristas, Tom, because this happens to us every day. Everyone dumps all their shit on us, right?
Yeah.
Um,
We've trained
we
for this,
we get paid for it, so I guess it's different.
Yeah,
So yeah, you should tip your barista if you're gonna
definitely. Definitely. Give
uh,
her a 20.
dump. I, Great question. What is it about? So this is a stranger, obviously. Maybe you see this person every day. You get your coffee and your muffin,
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know.
But pretty much a stranger.
Pretty much a stranger. So what is it that you just felt compelled or comfortable enough just to let a lot of innermost secrets to a stranger? That's the kind of one of the magic components of therapy is we all have crazy ideas that float around in our head. Every single person does, and if they don't, they're lying. So, but we all have these thoughts that are out there that go through our mind every day, but they don't exist. They're just thoughts. They're just thoughts. It's no big deal. But when you express them to another person, they have energy, and they're in the universe, and they're out there, and you have to deal with them. So a lot of times people don't want to say these crazy thoughts to a friend or a family member or whatever because there's
Somebody who might have a bias
yeah, there's
or
judgment
judgmental.
involved, and then there's these are people in your lives so that they may, oh, remember that a year ago when Brett
Yeah.
said that crazy stuff. I couldn't even believe it. But anyway, that's the magic of going to see a counselor or a therapist is you get to say some of those crazy things, and they now have energy, they have life, and you have to deal with them, and they can never be repeated. I mean, a
Yeah.
therapeutic relationship is confidential, outside of revealing about hurting yourself or somebody else. It's all confidential. So you get to deal with it in a safe environment.
Right. Well, you see your family members and your friends and even sometimes colleagues in wearing different hats in different roles. So when you go and see the barista, you're probably only seeing that barista in that moment at that time in that position. It's not like you're seeing your barista out in town shopping or with her kids or something like that. So you feel like this is a private transactional type of thing, just like when people go to see their priest or their, pastor or reverend and they do a confession or they at least have some kind of counseling, or when they go into the therapist, they don't see the therapist out in town necessarily, so they only see the therapist in that role. It's transactional, so they feel safe and people want to be heard. So sometimes it's not even important to them about the position that the person holds, whether they're a priest or a therapist or a barista or, the person at Foot Locker, helping you pick out the right size shoe, you know. So they feel more inclined and more comfortable sharing with a perfect stranger than they do with people that they are close to, because that stuff could come back to, potentially be held against them or be used as ammunition. So um, we don't necessarily encourage you talking to people in those professions that may not be able to hold the space for you the ways in which you need. So all the more reason for you to go see a therapist. That was nice that she gave you a free muffin. That's kind of cool. That's
Felt
kind of
sorry
like,
for you.
I don't know what the fuck to do with that. Good luck with all that. Here's a blueberry muffin.
All right. So, and it's funny, in college, I was a bouncer and a bartender, and that's how I earned money to pay for college. And then, becoming a therapist, I always said I was a therapist in training, being a bartender. Everyone wanted to tell the bartender all the crap going on in their lives.
Right? Well, bartenders get that too, right? Because I
Yeah.
mean, they don't see the bartenders out in town. They see the bartenders there at the bar, and they're a captive audience. You're just sitting there, maybe watching TV, eating some peanuts, drinking your drinks, and then there's the bartender wiping the table, wiping the counter, and you're like, hey, did I tell you what happened to me when I was 8?
The funny part is I don't think I could find it anymore. I've moved too many times, but my undergraduate dissertation, to graduate, my final senior project was the analysis of a regular. It was a 50-page, sociological inquiry of the regulars in the bar that I bartended at.
Oh man, I'm sure that was
Yeah.
enlightening.
I'd love to find that now. That was what, 30 some years ago. I'd love to find that and read
The
that. It's
the
pretty
regulars,
glorious,
huh?
actually.
That's what you called them, the regulars.
The regulars, yeah, analysis of a regular. Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that moonbeam. And we would definitely encourage you to maybe find a therapist or counselor, or even a
Mhm.
life coach or somebody that you can talk to about what's going on.
And the thought leads me to, I think we've talked about this before, but just communication and, the communication we have with the primary people in our lives, maybe a significant other, spouse, whatever. this person that you're living with, a lot of times we just want to get things off our chest. That whole I want to get things off my chest.
Yeah.
And like you said, when you want to talk about your day, you're getting it off, you're getting it out. They're just thoughts. And you're getting them out of your mind, and then they exist in the universe. So you just need to say them to deal with them, and then move on. Well, what happens so many times when, people come home from work, it's like, you're never going to believe what happened today. And
Hmm.
Mary did the same crap again today, and blah, 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 blah. And
Barry always does that shit.
Mary always does that, right? So, what we tend to do in those relationships is we want to jump in and help solve the problem. Well, why don't you just tell Mary to go piss up a rope, right?
Right. Hmm.
And most of the time,
Piss
people
up.
don't want you to solve their problems, right? They just want to be heard. They just got to get this out of their head and through their lips and out in the universe. And so, a common thing that I teach people is when you're having those discussions with a primary person, I always pull on my ear or point to my head. Do you want me to help problem solve this issue with you, or do you just need my ear and just need me to listen right?
Yeah.
And then once the other person is like, "Oh, I just," pulls on their ear, it's like, "Okay, pressure's off. I don't have to solve the problem anymore. I just need to listen." I can sit here and go, "Uh-huh, uh-huh,
Uh-huh.
dang, uh-huh, uh-huh."
Well, here's another thing. You and I have trained for this, and we've been experienced with being able to hold the space for
Mhm,
people. And so they can trauma dump all over us, and we know what to do with it.
mhm,
We know how to open up Pandora's box, delve into it, and then close the box and have
right,
somebody leave feeling empowered or have an insight or, have a call to action and they know exactly what they're going to do. You know, Sandy, who's the barista, doesn't have that ability. I mean, maybe she does. Maybe she's a good listener and maybe she probably would do better in the field of counseling or therapy. But she doesn't, you don't know that. So in that role, that's really not, and I know we talk about fairness and what's really fair, but now you've dumped that stuff. And what if Sandy doesn't know what the hell to do with that? And now she's thinking about it and she's got vicarious trauma because you just unloaded,
mhm,
the fact that, whatever abusive thing you've experienced in your life or
mhm,
trauma, now she's got to carry that with her today,
mhm,
Probably
right,
better to journal it or find a therapist to talk to about it or set up your phone and talk to yourself, record yourself talking about and trauma dumping, and then either watch it back or delete the video or both and see if that doesn't actually like help. But don't dump that stuff on Sandy, your barista.
right. We, as licensed therapists, have trained for a long time to be able to put that information in a file, close the file, put it in the file cabinet, and it does not affect us. We do that fairly well most of the time. I think where we struggle as a profession is sometimes that our files get leaky. And some of that stuff, it's difficult to listen. I mean, some of the stories that Tom and I have heard over the 20, 30 years we've been doing this would curl your toes. I mean,
Yeah.
it would probably make you vomit some of the stories that we've heard. But we have been trained, practiced to deal with those, put it in its place, and not carry that. I don't, and it's so funny. Like I'll see people for a year, and then 2 years later, I'll see them at the grocery store, and I can recognize their face. I never forget a face, but I delete all that information. So someone will
Mhm.
come up and say, "Hey, Brad, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in a couple of years. How's things going?" And I'm like, I know the face. I don't remember a thing about the person because I delete it and I dump it,
Yeah.
and I don't want to remember. I don't want to
Mhm.
carry your crap forever. And
Right. No, it's when we say when you come into the office and you're dumping that stuff and you're going to leave it here and you're going to leave
Mhm,
without that so that you can have a productive, healthy rest of your day. When we leave the office, we're leaving that stuff here. We can't
no,
take that
yeah,
stuff home with us. I
mhm,
mean, we'd be just jello on the floor.
yeah,
If I mean, you see what on average, hey, 6 to 10 people a day. Like, there's
right,
days I see 10 people, like that's a lot of stuff to take on and deal with. I've got to ground that out and leave it here
mhm,
at the office. I can't take that home with me. Or
mhm.
I'd
Yeah,
just be
no, I
curled
do
up
that.
in
I get
bed in tears, like thinking
yeah.
about the shit that's happening to people out there.
And that's where you see where people are not successful in this profession
Yeah.
is when they do have when their boundaries get poor and they're not able to compartmentalize. And there are a lot of therapists that we interact with that they lose the ability to do that later on in their career for whatever reason. And then it's just time you got to go. You got to
Yeah.
go. So,
So the lesson for today is don't throw breadsticks at your barista.
all right. For
No,
sure.
the lesson is you uncover what's beneath those strong emotions and see if you can
Hmm.
link it to an event or maybe just some thoughts and then work through that. And if
Hmm.
you're feeling the need to be heard and express yourself and dump some of the trauma that's happened to you, then find somebody who can hold the space for you that can do that exceptionally well, like a therapist.
Hmm. Hmm. And if you're not ready for that step, at least start by journaling or doing some of those other strategies that Tom was talking
Yeah.
about.
Give
Very,
that videotaping yourself a shot. It works well for anger too.
yeah.
There's been times when I've been furious at somebody and I know it would not be appropriate nor helpful to scream and yell and carry on to them, at them. So I've done that, set up my camera on the phone and let my phone have it, watch the video back, laugh, cringe, delete the video, and then I move on.
Hmm.
I feel better and I don't carry that with me anymore.
All right. Yeah, it's a good strategy for sure.
So Carl and Moonbeam, try that. Just give that a shot once.
All right. See what happened. What could possibly go wrong?
But thank you for sending in your questions and thank you guys for listening to us. Thanks for being
Absolutely.
here with us.
Got any suggestions for us? Got questions? Got a topic you want us to talk about? A situation you want us to talk about? Just send us a question or your comments at questions@therapyunzipped.com.
Yeah, shoot it to us. And we hope that you guys have a great day and a great weekend.
You as well, Tom. Last weekend of April. What the heck?
Can you believe it? We're gonna jump up, spin around, and it's gonna be Christmas.
On that. Oh no. All right, Tom. Have a great weekend.
You too. Good to see you.
Good to see you.